Sea feathers, sea pillars, sea whips, sea fingers. Hard corals. And we have coral out here, looks like the human brain. Brain coral, really a slow, very slow growing coral. Only about a 1/16 of an inch a year. We have some of that brain coral out here. They average to be almost 5 million years old. We have elkhorn coral and staghorn coral. Unfortunately, both are on the endangered species list for our corals. They do look like the antlers on those particular animals. We have mountainous star coral. Kind of looks like a little mountain range. We're coming upon some gray snappers in the flood. Mustard hill coral. Kind of looks like broccoli. So some of our hard corals out here. And there's many more. Long torpedo-shaped fish way in the back. It's one of our barracudas. And we have lots of stinging corals out here too. I mean, there's many to mention, more than I have. But again, I want to get into some of our fish here. Now these little yellow black striped fish, there's a group again going under my feet sometimes. Well, usually I find them in much larger groups than that. They're called sergeant majors. They are part of the damselfish family. Kids like to call them the zebrafish or the bumblebee fish. Now, we call them the greeters of the reef. And the reason why we actually do that is because if you have the opportunity to come snorkeling or diving, they're very friendly, very curious fish, and they are the first ones that will swim right up to you when you get in the water. Don't fear them. You know they come in large groups. This is bumpy coral here, so that's our mountainous star coral. And they might even peck on you a little bit when you get in the water. They won't hurt you to get very small mouths. But they're very contented to swim around with you while you're out here. Figuring you're the largest thing out here, they feel protected from predators. Now here's a series of goatfish again. Now while we're out here, we've got a midnight parrotfish. This is this dark blue fish going under my feet. The molasses reef is also what we call a spar and groove reef. We do have lots of cracks and crevices, ledges, sand channels. Again, look in those areas and under those ledges for bigger schools of fish or bigger fish today. So today being a little overcast, we're hoping that more are going to be swimming out in the open for you. But again, those other group of fish that we just saw with the yellow tails, those are some of our yellow goatfish. Again, fish are pretty much named for their characteristic. Goatfish actually have little whiskers on their chin. They're called barbels. They're very sensitive because these fish are particularly a bottom feeder. So they're very useful for this fish. They will go and sift those little whiskers through the sand. They'll eat just about anything like a goat would. Okay, we got a midnight parrotfish through this rich dark blue fish. Over on the starboard side, folks. Gonna catch them in the back. Now, parrotfish are very special out there. That's one of the largest of our parrotfish. Notice how those fins, those pectoral fins, the fins on the side, were very large. Now, again, just about 15 different varieties out here. Males have more brilliance of colors. Females can be grayish, or gray with a white stripe is our princess parrotfish, brownish color. And we have a stoplight parrotfish. She kind of look a little bit more like Indian corn. Little green head, yellow around her eyes, and a red belly. And that's why she's named a stoplight parrotfish. Parrotfish are very important out here on the reef to keep it healthy. They are basically vegetarians. So they eat the algae out here. Now, not that they won't eat a shrimp from time to time, because I have caught them while fishing, but it's kind of rare. So again, they're very important to the reef because the algae that these corals need to keep in balance. Too much of it's not good. Parrotfish help us do that. Now, back in the 80s, we had spiny sea urchins, and they were quite plentiful. Pretty much couldn't step 3 feet without stepping on some. Also, we've lost them over the years due to disease out here. I do hear a little bit down south they're spotting them. They are making a little comeback down there. Unfortunately, I haven't seen them out on this reef. So, parrotfish, very important because they keep the algae in balance. Algae is very important to the corals. That's what gives them their oxygen, color, and sustains life for them. Now, parrotfish, some of the ways to identify them, we did see that midnight parrotfish, but other than their brilliance of colors, is they actually swim different than other fish do. They don't use their tail. They use those pectoral fins. Those are the fins on the side. Again, so those are a little bit larger. And as they do swim, it kind of gives them a flying sensation through the water. Very beautiful. Though it is not the reason why they're called parrotfish. Actually, their teeth are all fused together like a beak of a bird. They're very sharp. And they use that for scraping the algae. We have a very small, smooth brain coral, or up here on the right, kind of round like a ball, no smaller than a beach ball, already close to 1,000 years old, being that it grows so slowly. Now, parrotfish, as they come down here and they're scraping away at that algae, lots of times you'll see them scraping it on a hard fossilized coral on the bottom. Now, your hard coral is basically made up of a limestone. Got a rainbow parrotfish way over to the right for you folks, kind of turquoisey, yellowtail. As they scrape away at the algae, here come our sergeant majors, which I mentioned are little breeders. As they scrape away at that algae, they will ingest some of that limestone. Now, doesn't have any nutritional value to them. Sometimes they can get pretty big chunks, almost like little pebbles in their mouth. Now, what are they going to do with that? Well, parrotfish actually have a second set of teeth further back in their throat, which they use as a grinder. There's some more of your boatfish under the ledge there. Now, they will grind that up. Actually, when you're diving, it's very noisy. You can hear it grinding up. Very, very noisy. But they will grind that limestone up and make it into a very fine paste. Right on this ledge by this mountain of star coral, you've got 2 yellow fish with a black dot. Those are our 4 butterfly fish. Those are the romantics. So once our parrotfish make that limestone into a nice fine paste, what will happen? No pun intended, but what comes out that back end is some of our fine white sand out here. The large parrotfish, like the midnight parrotfish, that can get up to 3 pounds, can produce up to 2 pounds of sand a day. 3 tons in a year. So in actuality, folks, our sand, 60% parrotfish poop. And it makes them sandcastles a little different. Very useful. It's actually a fertilizer out here for your corals and stuff. It filters out. Don't be afraid of your sandcastles. But again, they are very important out here to the reef. Now, coral reefs per se, they are so important to our oceans. Over the years, even the 27 years I've been down here, unfortunately we have lost so much. Barracuda, get in the front, long torpedo ship, going to the right. Now, this is the only living coral reef in the continental USA. Molasses Reef is a small part of it. Now, Molasses Reef is a mile long. It is a half a mile wide. It has been protected since 1992. There is no fishing allowed on this reef. There's no anchoring. These white horn balls, when you get up later that you'll see, is what you must hook up to. They are strategically placed out here so the reef does not get injured. So no fishing, no anchoring, no touching or taking. Here on Molasses Reef, that bumpy coral again for you folks in the back, mountainous star coral. Very long fish over here to the right. You folks might see him. It looks like a stick. You see him over there? It's called a trumpet fish. The Molasses Reef I haven't seen the damage over the past few years that we previously had, just from mankind, just using it out here. So we need to protect our reefs more and more. But again, this is the 3rd largest reef tract in the world. Nice smooth brain coral, just going below me right now. Second to the Meso Reef Tract, which is in South America. And again, our largest reef in the world is our Great Barrier Reef, which is 1,200 miles of continuous reef. Now, our reef tract, Florida Reef Tract, actually is 240 miles long. It is not a continuous reef. It's a reef which is a series of patch reefs like Molasses being the 7th largest. And it actually does start in the West Palm Beach area, hugs the coast of Florida, and is 30 miles off of Key West by the dry Tortugas. And why are coral reefs important? Well, first of all, at different times of year, you will see different fish out here. Lately, we've been getting a few tarpon out here, a couple of snooks. Well, this is where these fish come to mate and spawn. It gives them a place to meet up.